What up, guys? Carolina Jackpot coming at you. March 10th, 2019. Let's talk some college football. I saw a list of top 25 teams put out by SB Nation. This was put out several weeks ago. And this is not per se a top 25 to try to rival the AP top 25, the playoff top 25. These are more power type rankings. Kind of a model for what may happen. So I'm going to go through these from 25 to 1, give you my thoughts on it. And, this just kind of puts things into a little bit of perspective. Been itching to talk some college football as it's relevant to this year. So here we go. I know a lot of people are putting videos out right now about some way too early predictions. And then in the summer, they'll also do some way too early predictions. So I'm not all about doing those, but I wanted to talk about some of these teams and what I think may or may not happen this year, who I like, who I don't like, what my thoughts are on their schedule, so on and so forth. As you know, if you've watched this channel for a while, you know that my opinion is somewhat unbiased. So you can take that as you wish. Number 25 on this list is Iowa. Had a run-of-the-mill season last year. Iowa always seems to hover around the 8-4 mark. Ever so often they've kind of gotten up there with like a 10-win season, but not really a playoff-type contender. They do return their quarterback this year, Nate Stanley. Seems like he's been there for quite a while. They got a couple of running backs coming back, which is good news for them. Bad news for them is the schedule. It's pretty tough. They're on the road at Michigan, on the road at Wisconsin, and they're also on the road at Iowa State, which is now considered a pretty tough game. They are the favorite to win the Big Ten West. So that is what it is. Purdue, I guess, not in the mix for that. Or Nebraska. Everybody's talking about how great they think Nebraska is going to be this year. Scott Frost's second year. Number 25, I think Iowa's probably right around where they need to be as far as the way that will pan out. Boise State comes in at number 24. Don't really know a whole lot about Boise State this year. Schedule, lines up, pretty much like it has in years past. They do have a game against Florida State. The opener is in Jacksonville, the Gator Bowl versus FSU there on August the 31st. And I can obviously see Boise State is going in there and pounding Florida State. Can you not see that happening? I can. FSU, just not what they used to be. Speaking of them, on a side note, on this poll, I won't talk about them because they were listed at number 28. Why? That's not legitimate. Okay, that is not legitimate. They're not a number 28 team in a power index or in just a regular poll. They're just not. It's like the media just wants them so bad to be good that they're going to put the cart before the horse here, and let's just go ahead and rank them. I mean, what do they have coming back? James Blackman? I mean, and what? They're not at one time you could say, well, they got a lot of talent. They just got some coaching issues. Now the talent levels is dropping off. It's dropping off too. No, I just Boise State will win that game, and I think maybe pretty easily. Michigan State, they're coming at number 23. Their quarterback, Brian Lewerke, is back. Kind of had a disappointing 2018. I think they were, picked to be one of the top 3 teams in that Big Ten East, and that just didn't happen. Really low output from their offense. They do have some talented receivers and all of their offensive line coming back. They're at Michigan. They're at Wisconsin, and they are at Ohio State. Pretty tough schedule. Number 23, I don't see that. I think they're a little bit lower than that. Oklahoma State checks in at number 22. Yep, here's another team that always seems to have the tools to put together a winning season, but they never really, go much further past that. What was it? It was like 2007, I think, when or 2008, something like that, when they were really good. Number 22, they got to replace some production on offense, but they always seem to reload with the same type player. They just have a different name, just switching them out all the time. Oklahoma State at number 22, that's probably about where they need to be. Check number 21, Tennessee. Everybody likes to kick them around, give them a hard time. They did, score, a win or two last year in the SEC. They broke the streak, beat Auburn on the road. Good win. Anytime you can win at Auburn is a good win. They beat Kentucky also and took them out behind the woodshed, a team that, really for much of the year was 1-2 in the SEC East race there. But then the next week, Tennessee goes out and they got shellacked by Missouri. So, this is one that they're very unpredictable. Played my Gamecocks last year. They actually should have beaten us. They were up on us at one point late in the fourth quarter, like 21-9, and we came back and beat them. I read somewhere that their quarterback, Jarrett Guarantano, he's coming back, has put on about 15 pounds muscle, which could be, a scary thing for teams without a great defense to stop that. That kid, every third down last year, it seemed like he was picking up extra yardage when he kept the ball against us. It just kept plugging and plugging and plugging, and we couldn't stop him. So seeing that he's putting on 15 pounds of muscle, as long as that doesn't slow him down, that could be, a hell of a coup for Tennessee. They bring back Ty Chandler and got three receivers coming back, their top three receivers, that is. They do have a new offensive coordinator. So defensively, stacked up pretty well last year. They did an average job, with Jeremy Pruitt, who, of course, from former defensive coordinator, he's a defensive-minded coach. They've been recruiting really well. They got a player from up here out of Charlotte, Quavaris Crouch, was a five-star athlete. Probably play a little bit of, I don't know, whatever, receiver, running back for them. Good player there. So things are looking up for Tennessee. Number 21, I could see it. Let's keep them there. The Big Orange maybe on the way back. Oregon, they got them ranked at number 20. They'll be bringing back their quarterback. What is his name? Justin Herbert. Non-conference schedule. They do play Auburn in the first game of the season. I think that one's out in Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. Oregon's one of those teams that's always going to put up a lot of points. Going to be competitive out there in the Pac-12 with those teams. At number 20, I would say those guys are probably, I'd say they're probably a little bit too low. Justin Herbert's one of the better returning quarterbacks in the country. I would bump them up just a tad, but not a lot. They're not a playoff contender team. I don't think they're going to win the Pac-12, but let's give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. They got Miami here at number 19. Miami is a virtual unknown. Manny Diaz, the new head coach. We don't know what kind of head coach he's going to be. Of course, the people in Miami, they love the guy. He was their assistant for quite a while there. Got Miami roots. So we'll see what kind of job he can do. I mean, I think he'll be a good, solid recruiter for them. They can pull in some of that talent down there from the south end of Florida, because it's just stock full of high school football talent, none of which has been going there. So this could be, the drawing card they need to bring them in. Miami did not copy their schedule down, their typical ACC schedule, and they do open up with Florida in week 1 in a game that may be moved to August the 24th. I still haven't heard back on that one officially. I haven't seen anything else on that. They're underdogs right now. I can see it, kind of, but, we'll talk about Florida a little bit more here later on in the video because they're ranked pretty high. But Miami at number 19, I'm going to go ahead and keep them there. I could definitely see that coming to fruit this year. South Carolina, my Gamecocks, that guy I sent number 18. I'm sure everybody thinks that's too high. They're overrated. That's not happening. Y'all lost to Virginia. Y'all lost to Virginia 28-0. Blah blah blah. Well, you know what? There's been a lot of teams that have lost bowl games and went on to pretty successful futures. Talk to a Georgia fan. I mean, is Georgia fan any less optimistic about the 2019 season just because they got blown out by Texas in the Sugar Bowl? No, they're not. These bowl games, I mean, they're great, but, you're also looking at the fact that their best player, our best player, sitting on the sidelines for that game. Half the defense was wearing bodysuits. The other half of them wasn't playing. I mean, it is what it is. South Carolina didn't perform in that game. We know that, but I don't think it has a bearing on 2019 at all in a negative fashion, as it were. This could be some motivation for 2019 to come out and, hey, we got to come out. We got to play every week, the way we're capable of playing. And I've been saying that for years. I mean, you saw Clemson get blown out several years ago by West Virginia in a bowl game. They lost 70-33. And what's happened ever since then? They've lost like 6 games in 7 years. So, that can be some real motivation. And they all talk about it, too. They all talk about it. Say, well, that was the game that turned our program around because Dabo went out and fired Kevin Steele the next day and blah, 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 blah. You'll hear it all day long. Anyway, getting back to South Carolina, Gamecocks, Deebo Samuel, biggest loss. That's, a lot of lost leadership and athleticism there from him. They have some players coming in. They've recruited well. We finally got I think, some decent backup for Jake Bentley. Of course, Ryan Holinsky, the highly rated 4-star from California, already on campus and practicing, going through spring drills. DeCarrion Joyner is another one, athlete from Summerville, South Carolina. I think that this guy is going to end up being the top player that could be in that Deebo Samuel role. With the speed to get on that outside, the kind that can really take the top off of defense, as Uncle Lou would say. I don't see him playing a lot of quarterback at South Carolina, but I do see him making an impact. They, used him in freshman season, really pretty ineffective, didn't do a whole lot. They didn't bring him in any meaningful spots in any games. So hopefully in 2019 we get to see some more of DJ. They return at receiver. Ortre Smith is one of the bigger returnees that we have coming back. Ortre got hurt about the 3rd game of the season last year. He's a big possession-type receiver and somebody we need there. Brian Edwards is coming back for his senior season. Big-time receiver for South Carolina. Needs to learn how to hang on to the ball a little bit, or actually just not drop the ball. That would be better. But Brian is definitely a very talented wide receiver. He can make some big-time catches, and I'll look for him to do some good things this year. Got a new running backs coach at South Carolina this year. Hopefully that will pan out. He do return Rico Dowdle in the backfield, and Rashawn Fenwick, who was a freshman last year, did some really good things that I could look forward to be really did some stuff late in the year that was quite impressive. Deshaun Fenwick is his name. And we got a couple freshmen coming in there as well. That defense or that backfield needs some work. Hopefully this new coach we got coming in will do some things for us, change some things up. It's great to have a good passing game, but if you have no running game to spell it, it's not you're going to be in trouble. Defensively, Javon Kinlaw coming back for Carolina. That secondary is still kind of suspect. J.C. Horn's coming back. He was injured most of last year. Really good freshman. Along with some big-time recruits growing across the defensive line. Of course, 5-star Zacchaeus Pickens coming in. We have Rick Sandage coming back, sophomore. Did some good things last year as a freshman. And Javon Kinlaw, of course, the aforementioned. South Carolina looked pretty solid on defense. Number 18, I'm going to put that, say that's a little bit too high, though. The schedule we have this year, it's pretty tough. We're home against Alabama, home against Clemson. We're also at Georgia. So there's, 3 top 5 teams right off the bat on the schedule. We're at Tennessee. We're at Missouri. As far as conference games go, that could be tough ones. Florida's a home game for us this year, as well as is Kentucky. And then there's another one sprinkled in there somewhere. And, we're on the road at Texas A&M as well. So, tough slate for Carolina in 2019. One of, if not the toughest schedules in the FBS coming up this year. Appalachian State is a non-conference home game. Nothing to laugh at there. They took Penn State to overtime last year and almost beat them in the opener. And our actual opener is a game against North Carolina in the Belk College football kickoff in Charlotte, which, it's North Carolina, but still a Power 5 team we're opening up with. And are we that much better than them? I don't know. And we'll have to see. Mac Brown, can he sprinkle that magic on UNC again? They're not here. They're not listed, though. We won't talk about them. Utah, they come in at number 17 on this one. Returning Tyler Huntley and Zach Moss, running back and quarterback, respectively. Both these guys were injured for most of the last half of the year. They're at number 17. I would put them a little bit higher. I think Utah may win that Pac-12 this year. That may be the year that it happens for the Utes. That coach out there, what's his name, Kyle Whittingham, always got a solid program, always a solid team. So I look for Utah to be a little bit better than number 17. Missouri checks in at number 16. Missouri's returning a couple in the backfield. Larry Roundtree, another running back back there who amassed about 500-something yards, whose name escapes me. Roundtree was over 1,000-yard rusher this year. Or last year. They got Kelly Bryant coming in to play quarterback for them, replacing Drew Lock. Of course, Drew Lock did some great things at Missouri, put up a ton of numbers, heck of a quarterback. Kelly Bryant comes in from Clemson. Of course, Kelly went to the college football playoff several years with the Tigers, a couple as a backup. 1 year actually as the starter. Looked terrible against Alabama in the 2017 Sugar Bowl, or 2018 Sugar Bowl after the 2017 season. And they lost that game like 24-6. Kelly, I don't know that Kelly is – we're going to see what kind of a quarterback Kelly is at Missouri. We're going to see actually how talented he is. Because at Clemson, let's face it, offensively, he had a lot of talent around him that really made him look good and shine a little bit. He had a stoked backfield. He had, wide receiver U. He had a solid offensive line, extremely solid offensive line, should I say. Here at Missouri, there's some holes around. There's some holes and some chinks in the armor, if you will. So we'll see what Kelly can do here. Missouri won't be going to a bowl this year. They had some shenanigans going on there. I'm not exactly sure what all went down with that. But so there's no bowl motivation. We'll see what kind of team they can get. Number 16 right now at this point in time, I think it's probably a little bit too high. Missouri is another one of those unknowns that you never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to get from them. But one thing I can say about them, they do produce like a winning season most years. A couple years ago, if you remember, they started off like 1-6, like one of the worst teams in America, and then they reeled off like 6 wins in a row. So, who knows? Washington coming in at number 15. Washington, you're going to see Jacob Eason finally do some things there. Jacob, of course, highly touted high school player that started out his career at the University of Georgia, had a pretty solid 2016 season in Kirby Smart's first year at Georgia. Then 2017 season kicked in. He played, I think, one series against Appalachian State, and then he got hurt. He was out for the rest of the year. And then saw how great Jake Fromm did in 2017. I guess saw the writing on the wall. Jake decides to transfer to Washington. Jacob, as a matter of fact, because that's where he's from. He's from Washington. So it's been about 2 years since Jacob Eason's really played football. So, you know, who knows what we're going to get there. I mean, you know, everybody's like, oh, he's going to light it up, man. I'm telling you, Washington is going to be unstoppable this year because they got Jacob Eason. Like I say, it's been 2 years since Jacob's played football. So we'll see. Miles Gaskin, gone. What was that quarterback? Jake Browning that they had last year, gone. Both those guys were really solid. They got some pieces back around them. Washington always seems to hover around that mark. I would say that number 15 is probably about where they're going to be. I would go on ahead and pencil that in. Jacob Eason will probably, I'm just basing this off what I've seen in the past. He'll probably start out pretty rusty, and he'll probably get in a groove, but I don't think he's going to be, I don't think that he will end up being as great as what he could have been had he not gotten injured and had to sit out a whole year. Just don't think he will. Of course, he was able to practice, but practice and then being actually in a competitive game situation is two different things. Penn State checking in at number 14. They recruited well enough to keep up with the Joneses. Trace McSorley's gone. Miles Sanders gone. They return a good defense. They're at Ohio State. They play Michigan State, of course, out of that Big Ten East there. Typical schedule for Penn State. Number 14, I think, is probably either around where they need to be or maybe a little bit too low. I think James Franklin always got a pretty solid bunch. Last year was kind of disappointing for them. They lost to Ohio State. Very, very close game in Happy Valley. And then after that, things just kind of didn't click for them. 2019, I look for them to make a comeback. Texas A&M coming at number 13. Sorry, had to let the pooch out. Texas A&M, number 13. Of course, they're returning their quarterback, Kellen Mond. This guy puts up a lot of numbers. Explosive, dual threat type guy. Clemson had a hard time stopping him last year. South Carolina, my Gamecocks, gave up a lot of yards to him in a loss. However, the one guy we did hold in check was the SEC's leading rusher, Travion Williams. However, Travion is gone. So is their huge tight end, Jace Sternberger. If you'll remember him last year in the South Carolina Texas A&M game, he drug one of our defenders down the field for about 30 yards. He was sitting there trying to strip the ball from him instead of just tackling the guy. Most of their defense returns. This is Jimbo Fisher's second year at A&M. Number 13, with that running back being gone and, having to replace some production on offense, I don't know that may be, just a little bit too high. Everybody's got them. Some people have them penciled in. Some people have them penciled in the top 5. I mean, it's ludicrous to me. I don't understand that. They blew out NC State last year in the bowl game. NC State was very overrated. Not a very good team last year. I think Texas A&M's up there. They're too high. I think 13 is too high for them. Let's put them down a couple of notches. Just wait and see what they can do. Just wait and see. Notre Dame. Notre Dame comes in at number 12. They are on the road at UGA. They're also on the road at Louisville. It's kind of a odd matchup there. They're at Michigan, big house, kind of in the middle of the year. And they're also at Stanford in the last game of the season. Tough schedule for Notre Dame. Out of the ACC, at home they play Virginia Tech, they play Boston College, and they also play Virginia. We all know how tough they are, don't we? Of course, Ian Book will be back at Notre Dame. Number 12, seems to be probably a little bit too low for Notre Dame. I'd probably put them up just a tad. Yeah, that's a tough schedule, but I think those games are winnable, especially the at Louisville and at Stanford games. Last year, they took Stanford to the woodshed at home. At Georgia and at Michigan, if they finish that schedule out with all wins and go 10-2 with that slate, and in the UGA and at Michigan games, if they lose them but they're very close, that would be a top 10 finish. Wisconsin, number 11. Got to say, I don't really agree with this one. I would put them down a little bit. Of course, first off, we don't know who their quarterback is going to be. The Alex Hornibrook guy transferred out, graduate transfer. He's gone somewhere. Escapes me where he went to. Jonathan Taylor's back in the backfield. He was a 2,000-plus yard rusher last year. That is very impressive. They have to rebuild their offensive line, and they play Michigan, Michigan State, and Ohio State out of the Big Ten East. Yeah, all three of those guys. That's a very tough schedule for Wisconsin. At number 11, I think maybe just a tad too high. They do have a couple quarterbacks, one highly touted freshman kid, can't remember his name, that's coming in. So we'll see. We'll see with those guys. Number 10 on this power rating, and I questioned whether or not this was a misprint, so you definitely know that I'm going to say lower on this one. Mississippi State at number 10. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. These guys didn't look all that great last year. Their quarterback, Nick Fitzgerald, gone. They got to replace a lot of production in other places on the team. Defense looks pretty solid, as Mississippi State normally does have a pretty staunch defense. But number 10, way too high for them. They may be a top 25 team, by the middle of the season, but putting them all the way up at number 10, no way. No way, Jose. Nah. Take them down. Lower. Michigan. You got them at number 9. Think about that. Shea Patterson's coming back. They have one of the top receiving crews in America coming back, headlined by Donovan Peoples-Jones. I like saying them kind of names, them hyphenated last names. Peoples-Jones. He's one of the top wide receivers in the country coming back. Got a good offensive line coming back as well. Defensively, a lot of question marks. Rashawn Gary, Devin Bush, all those guys gone. So they have some replacements to make there, but I think they can definitely fill some gaps. They've recruited well as well. They got Notre Dame at home, and Ohio State also at home. Number 9, I'm going to say Michigan's a little bit too low. Shea Patterson, really set them on their ear last year up in Ann Arbor. Did some really good things. You had a couple of losses there that you maybe shouldn't have had. That bowl game against Florida, that was a farce. I don't really think that was a true indicator of Michigan. Let's put them up just a little bit. I've been pretty high on Michigan for a few years, and I will continue to be as well. Number 8 coming in is Auburn. I mean, this is another one. This is kind of like the Florida State thing. This is another team that for some reason the media wants them to be good so bad, and they just stick them up with these lofty rankings and these lofty type expectations that they are not a number 8 team. Okay, their quarterback, what's his name? Jared Stidham gone. Last year they had all kind of problems at the running back position. Never could decide on one. The bowl game, they did look very good in that bowl game against Purdue. I got to give it to them. Beat them like 56-14 or something in the game that I picked Purdue to win that one. I don't know what happened there, but a number 8 team, Auburn is not. Their defensive line is solid. Auburn normally does have a solid defensive line and linebackers, but let's just be real. They're not a number 8 team in the country. Ohio State, they check in there at number 7. Quarterback position, they should be set. Tate Martell comes in. Is he a freshman? Or was he there last year? Can't remember. Tate Martell, he's highly touted of anyway. And, of course, Justin Fields transferred from Georgia to there. There was some question about whether he'd have to sit out a year or not. The questions have been answered. He does not have to sit out a year. He's eligible to play immediately. So we're going to see. They're ranked number 7. New coaching staff, too. Not only is new head coach Ryan Day, he's replaced a lot of coaches on both sides of the ball. They're at Michigan, at Nebraska, and they also have a road game at Cincinnati this year, which should be that's kind of fun and interesting. I don't really think Cincinnati. They were undefeated for a large portion of the season last year. I don't see them challenging Ohio State, but. You never know. You never know what can happen. But with the Justin Fields thing, you got a lot of people out there saying, "Oh my God, they got Justin Fields now. Put him in the playoffs." Just put him in the playoffs. What did he do last year at Georgia? Not much. Not much. He didn't do much at Georgia. And you got a large segment of Georgia fan that sit there and complain about that, about Justin Fields didn't get enough playing time. Justin Fields didn't. Why don't we see Justin Fields more? We can't do this more. Some people need to learn to trust their coaching staffs a little bit, okay? Now, with me, I bitch about Coach Boom and some of the decisions they make, but you know what? Coach Boom ain't never won no huge games for us. Coach Boom ain't never been to the playoffs or, anything like that. Kirby Smart and staff in year 2 ran through the SEC East like poop through a tin horn. They went to and won the SEC championship. They went to and won almost the national championship. Should have won it. So, I think these guys are good evaluators of talent, and they probably know what they're doing. And there's probably a reason why Justin Fields didn't play that much last year. Maybe it's just because he just wasn't that good yet. Maybe he's just not ready. I'm not saying that Justin's not a great ball player, and I'm not saying that Justin doesn't have a hell of a future in front of him. But let's just face facts. These guys know and knew what they were doing, okay? He obviously was not ready, and it was probably youth and inexperience. He probably didn't understand some of the schematics. He probably just didn't understand some of the play calling, and he probably needed a year of observation. He didn't like that, I guess, so he just decides, you know what, I'm going to take my ball, and I'm going to go to Columbus, Ohio, which is exactly what he did. Good luck to him there. But I don't think that automatically makes them a playoff team to be penciled in. However, I do think that around number 7 is probably where they need to be at this point in time. Now, if they're anywhere that they're going to go, it's going to be up. I don't think that they'll drop down from that, but I think that it's a wait-and-see game with Ohio State. Justin Fields may go out there this year and run for over 1,500 yards and throw for 3,000 yards and, look like, the greatest sophomore ever to grace the college football landscape. He may go out there and flop. Who knows? It's a wait-and-see type thing. Florida, my favorite team in the world. They got them in there at number 6. They returned Michael P. Ryan in the backfield. Also, quarterback Felipe Franks is back. Franks looked a lot better last year under Dan Mullen than what he had previously under McElwain in his freshman season. They finished up the year, I think, 10-3. huge win over Michigan in their bowl game. I mean, they took them out behind the woodshed. They beat Michigan, what, by like 20 points, I think it was. Michigan was had a few players sitting for that one that didn't play, but nonetheless, Florida took them out and embarrassed them. Florida had some good wins last year. Win over LSU, which was pretty impressive. They played Georgia. They lost to Georgia. I think it was 37-17 in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. But Florida kept that game pretty even for most of 3 quarters. And if you'll remember, at one point in that game, Georgia had 1st and goal from like the 1, and they couldn't get in. I mean, Florida held them out. I mean, that was one of the best defensive stands I'd seen all year. And Florida is a team that would take advantage of other teams' weaknesses last year. They were down to Vanderbilt on the road by like 3 scores in the first half. Second half, they took advantage of the fact that Vanderbilt didn't have the depth that they did. They kept chipping away, and they ended up winning that game. Same thing with my Boomcocks. We were up on them by 2 scores in the 3rd quarter. Then, all of a sudden, and that wasn't so much a depth thing. That was yet another play-calling type thing, issue there, where I can kind of look at, us and see, what the heck were we doing? South Carolina went with like a conservative type game plan. Let's just, run it 3 times up the middle and punt. And every time we ran it 3 times up the middle and punt, they get the ball back and score. And we ended up losing that game. It was pretty embarrassing to be up by Florida. Be up on Florida by 2 scores in the middle of the 3rd quarter on the road and let them come back and beat you. If you want to go back, quite a few videos, but it's still on there. It's entitled "Stop Losing to Garbage Teams." I was really mad after the loss to Florida, and I let my feelings be known about our football program and also about the University of Florida football program during that video. At number 6, I think that's too high. I don't trust them still that they won't go out and blow it this year. They play Miami in the opener, and everybody's got Florida penciled in. It's like a 10-point favorite. I don't see it. I think that they could lose to Miami in Orlando. I mean, they could also beat them. I think it'll be a close, pretty good game. They got another typical SEC schedule. They play Auburn this year from the SEC West, and that's a home game for them. They play my Gamecocks in Columbia. They play Georgia, of course, in Jacksonville, and Tennessee is a home game for Florida this year. So we'll see. Number 6, I think, is a little bit too high. Florida is probably a top 10 team, maybe around number 10. Maybe they could take Mississippi State's spot because, they don't need to be there at number 10. Oklahoma, they got them at number 5. Jalen Hurts is coming in. Should be the quarterback for Oklahoma this year. That running back, what's his name, Rodney Anderson, the one that ran for like 2,000 yards in 2017, should be back as well. He was injured last year, I think, in the first game. So we'll see about them. They got him at number 5. Hopefully they can get it together on defense. If they can play defense as well as they move the ball last year, they would have definitely won the national championship. No doubt about it. But they play defense at Oklahoma. So we'll wait and see on them at number 5. I'll hold firm. I'll say that's probably about where they need to be. LSU ranked at number 4. Here's another one. Every year, man, every year they get put up. And I'm not lying to you. Every year, when somebody comes out with preseason playoff, this is what your playoff's going to look like when it gets released in December. When people come out with that in like August, it's always got LSU on it. Why? Everybody wants this team to be good so damn bad. I can't stand it. Number 4, is LSU a good team? Yes. Are they a top 10 team? Yes. Are they number 4? No, they're not. That quarterback they got over there, that Joe Burrow, now let's say he did improve over the course of the year, but this guy's not, he looked really bad at times last year. looked really bad, looked like a good decision maker in that game against Miami, the first game of the year last year. I mean, that guy didn't look like he had a clue. Clyde Edwards-Helaire will return at running back for LSU. The Brissett guy who was there that kind of looked like the next line of great LSU running backs came last year. He's gone. I guess he was a senior. I don't know about him. Offensive line in good shape. Their defense in good shape. Grant Delpit, one of the better defensive backs in the SEC, perhaps the best one. That defense will be solid. Yeah, I give them a hard time. I think LSU is a top 10 team, but they're not number 4. They're not. This is another team that always seems to blow it at some point during the year. Last year, they beat Georgia when Georgia was undefeated. Then they turned around a couple weeks, I think, prior to that, and they lost to Florida. You know, when they shouldn't have, when they were a favorite, and I think they were clearly the better team. LSU is another one that can't get over the hump, can't win the big game when it counts. Bowl game last year, Central Florida. Yep, they beat them. Give them a feather in their cap for that one, for ending the undefeated streak of the Knights. But at number 4, it's just a wait-and-see thing with LSU. I would put them down a little bit there, perhaps maybe the 7 or 8 mark right now. Clemson comes in at number 3, defending national champions. Hard to argue with that. Number 3, some might argue that that's too low, me included. Defensively, they have to replace a lot. They do have to replace a lot defensively. Austin Bryant, Cleveland Farrell, Christian Wilkins, and Dexter Lawrence. The front 4 all gone. Some of the back 7 gone as well, either to graduation to NFL or a combination of both. Defensive line, they do have the tools to rebuild it. KJ Henry, Niles Pinckney, and, of course, the ever-present Xavier Thomas coming in. Those guys will take over on that defensive line. Do I think that it's going to be as effective as the guys that were there before? I don't know. They have all the tools, but we'll see. Offensively, of course, we all know about Trevor Lawrence and the great things he did last year. He'll be throwing the ball to Justin Ross, who, in my opinion, is probably one of the best wide receivers in the country, if not the best, and T. Higgins. I think that Justin Ross is better than T. Higgins, but T. Higgins, no slouch. Loaded there. They're also loaded in another place, the backfield. Travis Etienne, this guy, to me, he's not a dark horse Heisman candidate. He's a legitimate Heisman candidate. This kid has averaged over his career like 7 yards every time he's touched the ball. Last year, they fed the ball to Etienne a lot more than they did in 2017, and it paid off huge. Lynn J. Dixon, sophomore, will be his backup, and I'm looking for big things from Lynn J. this year. I'm looking for Lynn J. to have a season kind of like Etienne had in 2017 this year. Tavian Feaster's back there as well, former Mr. Football from the state of South Carolina. He's a senior. We're going to see what Tavian can do this year. Hopefully Dabo will give him some touches and let him ride out his senior year in style. Got a little bit tongue-tied there. Sorry. He's a good ball player, but the college game he just hasn't adapted to as well as some of the aforementioned players that I talked about. Clemson at number 3, I could see it, but I could also see him being number 1 or number 2. You could kind of interchange those. Georgia, I got them at number 2. Of course, Jake Fromm returns with a bevy of riches in the offensive backfield. Elijah Holyfield is gone, but you do return James Cook, DeAndre Swift, and the highly touted, will be a freshman this year from North Carolina, the kid they called Zeus. What is his daggum name? I can't remember. I'm sure some smart-ass Georgia fan will leave a comment on here. Well, you remember what his name is? God, what is Zeus's name? My gosh. Somebody put that in the comment section. I'll know because I'm one of them type people. I got to know what something. If I can't remember what it is, I'll go over there and look it up in a minute, and it'll come to me. But anyway, Zeus is coming back. He hurt his knee last year during the summer and did not play last year at all. But he is very, very talented, very highly talented. If you watched his high school film, it was unbelievable. Defensively, they got some rebuilding to do there as well. But Georgia, I mean, no question about how well they've recruited. They've come in number one a couple of the past few years in recruiting. So, yeah, I'll look for number two. I'm thinking that may be. I think them Clemson, Alabama, they're 1, 2, and 3. I would really put Georgia at number 3 underneath Clemson, just based off what the Tigers did last year, and Georgia also. Last year seemed like the big game. It was kind of a tough thing for them to deal with. Couldn't win the big games. Of course, Justin Fields gone to Ohio State, like we talked about earlier. So. Do they have a capable backup in the quarterback position? I'm not sure who their backup is there. I'll look that up as well. Alabama, I got them at number 1. Of course, after the beatdown that they took in the national championship game to the Clemson Tigers, we'll be looking to avenge that this year. They returned all the tools offensively to do so. Tua's coming back. Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, and Najee Harris in the backfield. His brother, Damian Harris, is gone. Solid linebackers and should have a better secondary this year than what they had in 2018. They look pretty pee-poor in the secondary there for a while, especially in that Clemson game. Got torched several times down the stretch. So that's it. The top 25, according to SB Nation, for 2019, the way too early one. Weigh in with your thoughts on it. What do you think? Who you think's too high? Who you think's too low? Who you think should be there that's not there? Who do you think's there that doesn't deserve to be there? Let me know. And somebody feel free to drop Zeus's name down there for me as well, if you don't mind, please. I would appreciate it. I'll see you guys later. Peace. And I am out of here. Go Gamecocks. Woo! 2019 is the year of the rooster, baby.